profile of a nation is not government.
No.
The nations of the world today that are thriving are built heavily on an SME sector. That it is the private companies who have come out and that they have built the economy on the work that they have done. But this comes on the back of a conducive environment having been created by government to allow that happen. The people who make the potato crisps that are eaten all around the world is not government. It's an organization. The companies that we see today who make phones, who make shoes, who make clothes, they are private companies. There might be government stake to a certain percentage, but for the majority, they're owned by individuals. They are the most successful economies in the world today are built on the back of private companies.
I agree.
Because why is it so difficult for us to make that creative or conducive environment? Why? I really don't understand. It cannot be that difficult. But I am actually at the place this morning where I have refused.
The regulation and compliance issues are driven by the regulators, which is the government. So if you don't implement that, therefore, I don't know, I know you must have been there when President Moi came up with the Juakari sheds. They were all over. So he was giving places where artisans would come and congregate and do their business. However, the aspect of standardization and quality control was left to the market. Meaning, and it's very sad, if you go and buy a wheelbarrow, go the following day, you tell the same guy, please do it an hour for me. It will be different. So we are not able to standardize. And that is not the private sector to do. It is the regulators who come with the protocol that you must follow so that and that is what China does. That you give the enterprise, but you have these regulation aspects and protocol, quality control, so that you must comply.
Let me. There's so many talking points in my head right now because when you talk about standardization regulation, there was a study that was done in terms of comparing regulation and what we have in our policy documents to other nations, and Kenya was ranked at the very top there. It's up there. Mm-hmm. So in documents we have very, very good regulation. We have KEBS, for example. If you look at the list of the things that are in there, then you go now to the ground. How they say vitu kwa ground in the different. It then brings the question of enforcement. Is the problem that we don't have these standards somewhere or we don't know about them? Or is the issue enforcement?
There you go.
And I want to rope in Justina on this because I remember there was a time I visited this country, I'll not mention, and we were having a conversation and they were saying they had started taking imports from Kenya on avocados. Mm-hmm. Then they stopped. And I asked why. And I was told because of poor standards. Mm-hmm. Then digging deeper later, reports that were coming out is that farmers were actually harvesting these avocados when they were still immature. Mm-hmm. So it's the whole issue of taking shortcuts because the doors opened, you can export. But then you go kwa shamba, you harvest those ones that are still immature, you put them in a box and you still want to export. Forgetting that these trickeries that can work locally where somebody can't tell, hii avocado imeiva kweli, yes mama, hii avocado imeiva, unaweza kula jioni. Then you take this, unafinya, that's how you test. Then you go home, this avocado for 1 week, nothing is happening to it. It is hard as a stone. 2 weeks, it is hard as a stone. I've done experimentations where I've gone to a supermarket, bought bread. I've done investigative stories on these things. You buy a loaf of bread, put that loaf of bread on top of the table, leave it there. Mkate yozi, 3 days, the thing is still there, it's okay. 1 week, it's gone past its sell date, but the thing is still there. You go to our meat products, the ones that you mentioned. The meat products are laced with a lot of preservatives that this same meat, actually, the more it's aging, the more it looks, the more red it looks, and the better and the fresher it looks. And there are challenges around this. And Justina, what really then is it government? Because we can say government is not doing this, government is not doing that. But we've had a baraza here where there was a mama mboga who said, look, I can't buy onions from, which place is this? Nakuru, Nanyuki, Naivasha.
Narok.
Narok.
Yeah.
I have to go all the way to Tanzania. So the onions that we're consuming, and in fact, a lot of people, when you go to the market, those who know, they will, hii kitunguu ni ya wapi, ni ya Tanzania. So they know the selling point is, it's just in Tanzania, people will buy because they trust the standards there. Better that what really is the issue.
I believe enforcement comes with incentives. When you see Kenyans cutting corners, because I think it comes to the cost of production is high. But I want to blame leadership, because our leadership, or rather the people who are in the positions to influence, I'm always insisting there's a difference between a politician and those ones who are elected to be in a position to influence and shape policies and legislations. What are they doing? The only thing they like doing is going on the ground, giving borders, being seen that they're on the ground. But that is where they're supposed to come and ask, these are the regulations, these are the opportunities for Kenyans. What are we meant to do as government in terms of incentives and enforcement? So when you look at a Kenyan who says, I'm going to be in the business of onions, fertilizer, they're telling us fertilizer, the cost has gone down. But in addition to fertilizers, there's the issue of we are a rain-fed agriculture country. What have we invested in terms of water? In terms of even the labor, you have Kenyans themselves, we are thieves. I've been employed as a farmhand, I'm stealing from my boss. So when we say creating a conducive environment, what do we really mean? It means our factors of production must be disordered. So it comes from Kenyans not understanding. Those ones, when we are voting in people who are supposed to influence and shape policies and legislations that should make life easier for us, we only vote for people who, when you ask a Kenyan, why are you voting for Ndu? Alikuja matanga, alisimama na sisi. But is that the role of that person? The role of that person is when they sit down and they're coming up with, they're even sponsoring a bill, they're saying today we are dealing with onions. The issue is even the skuma wikis, they're being planted along the sewer line. When you ask this farmer, why are you doing this? This one is saying, I'm looking for money. But where are you doing it really? I don't have land to do it. The sewer line is the only place that is available for me to do it. Do you care about other Kenyans? No, me, I'm out for money. It's about even how you craft your policies that should speak to the hearts and minds of Kenyans. So the ones in those positions do not really understand their role, which I believe government should not even be involved in issues of going on the ground, in issues of business. There's a time the president told us we're going to invest in a studio, and I was left wondering, where is the fate of Standard Group? If you're doing studios, that should be Standard Group's problem. Let us give them incentives, let them be able to buy those equipments that government is saying is going to invest. So I think government should realize that it should even, your work is less than investing generally. Your work is policy, your work is incentives, your work is, we are enforcing, yes, but these are the incentives you have given you. So I think the problem goes to the mismatch of people not understanding. But we have to ask ourselves, why do Kenyans cut corners? Maybe the Tanzanian onions, the incentives that government has given them for doing things the right way. As we end up punishing, but have you really ever asked yourself, what is the incentives, even having this smart on? What are these incentives that government has given farmers? That, you know what, we are going to, maybe it's animal feed, the right quality, but they have never had the conversation. They're always telling us, this person is not doing the right thing. But you, what policy incentives are you giving them? Something else you'd also ask, Dennis, is that the middle class has shrinked. But remember, the workforce that we have, according to data, is 24 million. But those ones who are in formal employment are 3 million. So government realizes, let me just overtax the 3 million. They are again lazy. How can you make this 24 million also be part of nation building, be part of the taxes, be part of paying the debt? Remember, 3 million out of 24 million, I think that's a drop in the ocean. And that's why the middle class is shrinking. Government, should look at, when we are saying creating a conducive environment, it's the factors of production. No, not all of us want to be employed. No. But if there's research, there's innovation, there's that latitude that you can have your idea from primary school. Or even when we go for this, I don't know whether they call them science congress these days. Why do we have those competitions? I believe if we had taken the idea forward that this school has won, private sector would be there to invest on that idea.
Well, somebody said there's a young gentleman who actually came up with the idea of building an aircraft. He flew, it went up a few meters, then it went down. Police came and arrested him for trying to commit suicide.
Enforcement, but no incentives. So we are out to punish without incentivizing. That is our tragedy.
In fact, we have a little a case study. The AGOA. You know, if you look at AGOA, what is so different of turning our carry sector mirroring the AGOA concept model? Yes, because the AGOA model complies, has standards, has protocols there is the drive and for them to do that. So I think I keep saying what I call theory of change. The government or the leadership, sometimes they don't understand what we call the theory of change. For example, what is that we call economic empowerment? We are persuaded as politicians to stop at the output level or the activity level. But the theory of change goes all the way until when you get the change. Why would politicians celebrate giving border borders? Whereas we know that any other business, 95% of business dies on 6th month. So what is that which the government has done, or whoever is giving border to prepare these empowerment, the youth that you want to empower, so that they can go beyond? And I can predict here, most of those enterprises that's been started through empowerment, they will die on the 6th month.
So let me ask a very uncomfortable question, and we might take an affront to it because we may not want to get in touch with the reality.
Okay.
But then what is wrong with us? Look at the northern part of this continent, right? Many will say it's because of their proximity with Europe. That is why they have been able to imbibe the same characteristics and they're able to do well. Just look, Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco, Egypt, okay? Just look across board. Tell me where we see a problem of this non-compliance that we talk about. Let's even look at their sports. The northern countries, they don't, except for a few, they don't really go out of their countries to even play professional sports, because at the very place where they are, their countries invest in them and they do whatever they can do to ensure that they rise up. Then you want to go to the southern part of the country of the continent, and you want to look into South Africa, and you want to look into Botswana, and you want to look into Namibia, and the things that they have been able to do because they have insisted on a system. However, the people who are the drivers of those companies also, again, will have their links to where? To Europe. Look at China and look at the eastern side of the world. What did they say? They looked at this poverty thing and they said, you know what, guys? Enough is enough. We are going to come up with a plan and we are going to stick to the plan. All this, I'm sorry, Dr. Gashie, all these things that we talk about, standardization, regulation, we don't have the ability to standardize and we don't have the ability to insist on quality assurance. Do they have two heads? These people in Europe, these people in the East, these people in the South. Do they have two heads? They're human beings like us. But they're able to get a system in place, set regulation and standards, and keep the standard. And you know what? Where they don't keep the standard, we get rid of you and bring somebody who will keep, if not surpass the standard. So I go back to my original question. What is wrong with us? It's actually not an academic question.
No.
Basic one.
I will paraphrase a book by Chinua Achebe called The Trouble with Nigeria. And he said, the trouble with Nigeria, and now I'll put Kenya, is simple and purely that of leadership. And the book says that when General Murtala Mohammed took over government, the traffic in Lagos disappeared. Meaning, the psyche itself and what people perceive about the leadership changes everything. It's about our values, integrity. You know, if our values celebrate cutting corners, that is it. You know, what do we do with the people who are corrupt? What do? We put them in the position of leadership. Is that the same person whom becomes a leader within the sector where you want regulation, standardization, and quality control, and you want him to offer leadership? So until we change our values, our integrity, then I would say we are poor because we are poor. It's nothing about the regional positioning of our country. Why do I say that? Go to Namibia, go to South Africa. I've been there. Go to Malawi, go to all those West Africa, I do a bit of assignment there. You get Kenyans driving successful enterprises.
The man who came up with the blueprint for the metro system in London is a Kenyan.
It's Professor. It's called Professor.
So what happens when you?
I'll get the name.
So what happens when you remove the person from that system? What's wrong?
And he's the same guy who is consulting the metro in Dubai.
Yeah.
So I'll get the name. It's called Professor Washington Salmon. So it's about.
Okumu.
It's about. I'll give a name.
Yeah,
I think I have it by back on my mind. So it is our values, simple integrity issues. Nothing else. It's not about our middle name, Dennis. It is our.
You know, it's so sad. This morning, Ndo and I were just having a casual conversation, and you're talking about education. And you know, we were saying, you look at standards of education today, what we're subjecting our children to. And both of us are saying, you know what? If you're to look for another country to take children, you'd rather take them to another country where education works. All these people who are in charge of these offices, including the CSs themselves, all their children, none of them is going to CBC. Most of these ones have their children in Australia. Everyone was money. You get to a position of power. The first thing, make sure your kids are out of this country. Take them to South Africa, take them to the UK, take them to the US. Nobody is taking their children to our local schools here. And how then do we reboot or reset? Because it almost feels like we've been in this cycle for far too long, and things are getting worse. The young who are now rising up, I've seen what the adults are doing. Now you have schools that are striking and doing things that ordinarily in previous years, you at the mention of the name of this particular school, you think discipline, structure, very
Ready
well
to go.
kept. You are almost guaranteed. You take your child to this school, there is even a fight to get a position there. You're guaranteed that at the end, this child will become something in society. Today, they're the ones who are running riot, they're striking. The values have really dropped. Over everything, cutting corners. There was a conversation we were having another day with somebody here who was saying, you know, look, it almost feels like every day somebody goes into these offices in government, they're thinking, where do we make money today? What system can we come up with? What can we change? What can we introduce? All because there's a tender somewhere, there's an issue of procurement. This needs to go to this company A. Justina, how do we reboot?
How do we reboot? And if I can just connect to that, if we are not those in the world who are prospering economically, they make things. They do. What do we make as African countries? What do we make as Kenya? Don't tell me flowers, because they're in the ground. They grow. They come out. What do we manufacture? Don't tell me about oil in Nigeria. It's in the ground. You got it there when you arrived. What do we make that is going to get a surplus that will then begin to grow? We don't make anything.
Yes.
This is the problem.
Why we don't manufacture, I again insist, it goes back to our factors of production. Dennis, today you say, I have an idea, I want to go into manufacturing. I'm telling you, before you get approval, there's a CS somewhere who will ask for money. And that's why you see companies running away, because they ask for bribery. There are so many red tapes when you want to start a company. Maybe you want to buy land for that place, you're conned of 200 million. You see, our factors of production are not right. And that is why I always insist, if we are to move forward as a country, we must order the disorders in our factors of production. When you talk about the quality of education and the standard, I think what is affecting the generation, our time used to be told, when ukisoma, utapata kazi nzuri. Right now, there is no motivation for you to go to school. People are saying, I've seen my cousins, I've seen my brother, they were first-class honors, they are still at home. So people are no longer seeing the value. The younger generation is no longer seeing the value of education. And that is why I've always insisted, I don't even think it's about the curriculum. We should link our education to our economy. Where do we want to go in the next 30 years? Who do we need? Which skills do we need? So that when we are pushing that agenda, we are saying, if it's doctors, we have to have these skills, this skill set. If it is architects, anything. Let us look at from the end in mind, as Dr. said. What is our end? In the next 30 years, we want to be here as a country. And that when you even talk about China realized, speaking about the camel, their bend was overpopulation. What did they say? Let us have our strategy, road and belt. They come into Africa. Where are they investing in that? They have realized we cannot deal with our overpopulation, but we can go and use our skills in other countries. That is when we say linking our education to the economy. Kenya should look back and ask, what is our competitive edge? China's competitive edge is the road and belt. So that then they realize we're investing in this, and that's why you see even this Talanta Stadium, you hear that even prisoners from China are part of the labor force, because for them they're focusing, if we are to achieve or rather deal with our bend, which is overpopulation, then even our labor includes the wafungwas who are eating our money. You know, as a prisoner, you're eating taxpayers' money as food. Then pay for it. Use your labor to pay for it. So what we lack is that vision. But I'll also say, what is our problem? I've looked around and I've realized this conversation we've always had, the national cake. People are saying, oh, these people are entitled, these people are doing this. Have we ever stopped to ask ourselves, if there's a national cake, was it there miraculously? Did anyone bake it? Have you been part of baking that cake? What were the ingredients? Do we even have a cake now, 62 years after elections? Are we after independence? Do we really have a cake right now? So the conversation should be, are we baking a cake or cooking ugali? What we have in this country is politicians or people who are in those positions to influence and shape policies who focus on spending. Then you'll hear even your MCA telling you need to wajengia barabara. Then they're just focusing on spending. They should be telling us how much or what are they going to do to increase the wealth of the nation through factors of production. So when we move away from thinking there's a national cake, an elusive cake somewhere, towards now we are baking that cake or cooking a ugali to make it Kenyan, then we will start thinking ideas beyond spending. So our issue is the national cake.
Dr. Gashi, there's somebody here, Langatum Simakweli, who says, for example, Kenyatta University engineering students during COVID period designed the best and cheapest ICU bed, which which can be massively manufactured and even exported to other nations. Government killed the idea. So it's not lack of innovation. We have a lot of young people who are in the tech space, very brilliant minds. There is even a conversation the other day as we were heading into the election, and they were saying, look, we need to rethink because of all these billions that are going into this electoral process. Let's think of blockchain. It's technology. Why can't we be the first? The same way we were first with M-Pesa. Why can't we be first to come up with this idea? But nobody pays attention to anybody who has any innovative mind. Is it that we have shut down? And if Gashi today comes and he says, I have an idea that is going to improve the quality of water, we can actually change this salty bowl water into fresh water by using this that is going to be so cheap. What shuts us down? And again, back to that question of reboot. How do we reboot? We have to think of solutions.
Is because forgo innovation because we want to make money. I'll give an example. Currently, we are talking about the fourth and the fifth industrial revolution, which is going to be driven by technology. So where are we as the leadership? Because we know that is where the world is headed. So what is a policy? Do we even have a policy? Do we even have have we started thinking about now, because we are being overtaken on the fourth industrial revolution, we are headed on the fifth. Number two, how then, said about the leadership, where would we have a system for SHA for 104 billion, where we have universities who call themselves technological universities of Kenya, of Nairobi and whatever? Why don't we give challenge to those students to give us a solution? Talking about Kenyatta University and the ICU, where are we going to get money if you're not going to import 200 billion worthy of hospital equipment and technology? It's what we talked about is our ethical issues, our values, and what we're not, and the elephant in the room here, corruption. Because
it's almost become a curriculum.
It's actually, it is so much institutionalized that even when you go to an office and you are served well and that guy didn't ask you for anything, you pinch yourself. You think you have landed planet Mars, because it is so normal that even when you get that which you are entitled, free service. You go back and say, look, actually those are the stories that we tell when you're doing coffee. That you remember, I went to this office. It's not in Kenya. Well, you are supposed actually to be, should be the normal, but we appreciate the abnormal. We are now saying normal is boring because how? So I think is a national psyche that we must change, that things can be done differently.
How do we change it? We know what is wrong and what is ailing us as a country. Justina said, issue of leadership, factors influencing and affecting production. We have the solutions. Then the question is how? How do we do it?
We must keep on talking to it. There's no other way. Dennis, Omai and the rest, we must speak to it so loudly so that people there start pricking their conscience if they have any. Otherwise, that is the only way, so that we keep on speaking to it so that people can appreciate what we need to be done differently. And it goes back to leadership. We must have a reset. And for me, I'm a person who believes in disruption.
Disruption in order to bring about...
Innovatively. And I think the more we disrupt, we have disruptive innovation, however small it is, will get us there. However, our leadership believes in disruption, because if you look at the government and how it is set, it's so bureaucratic that even when you want to bring change, there's a lot of resistance from everywhere.
Sure.
Even those who would benefit from change itself. So we keep on speaking to it. And even especially, sometimes I say, sadly, even the devolved units, whereby now this disruption will come because it's smaller, it keeps copying the central government, sadly. However, even there, we must keep the duty, what we came to do this morning, to annihilate people, talk to it so that people can see the different part of it. Otherwise, when we come and agree that this is how things are supposed to be done, then we'll be in a big problem.
Is there hope as we look into it? Because one of the things that I think, suffer from is that we don't talk about these issues enough. So we kind of, if we ignore it, then it means it's not there. As we wind up, Justina?
I think there is hope. And the biggest conversation right now, I'm seeing Kenyans are saying, in Nepal, we should do what Nepal did. But let me quickly speak about corruption. I'm of a different opinion. When we think demand and supply, then is that the only sector in this country working is politics. You're going to do everything. You're going to even sell your house to invest in that. So, so it ends up being that politics is the only lucrative thing. And the factor of production in politics is connection. That Ndu knows Dennis, so you're going to benefit. And why do people go into politics? Because they realize iko pesa kwa serikali. So you end up stealing money. That money is what you're going to use to do business. How do we even get our startup capital in this country? Many people we talk about have been in politics, and that is where they have made money. So thinking demand and supply, there's over demand for political positions. And that is where you're willing, even the political connections, you're willing to have your person there, invest in a campaign so that Dennis gets there, they'll give you tenders. If all other sectors were working, Dennis, I'm telling you, we would not have over demand of people even having the cutthroat competition in politics. And that is why even you spoke about the blockchain. Article 86, unfortunately, says our constitution that the elections must be verifiable. Because maybe they're thinking, to take a blockchain, we start saying, fungueni server. You see, why is it again so that it's an interest for you that lazima sawa ifunguliwe uone? We don't even trust technology because it's an issue of life and death. So maybe, this is the last minute you're giving me. And tell Kenyans, I've seen Kenyans saying Nepal has gone down. We should also do that. Let us burn the country down. And tell Kenyans, before we burn the country down, let us try economic democracy. Let us look at factors of production. Let us look at how we fund counties, how we fund Article 43. Until we do that, there's room for change and we can give our country time. But saying we burn down the country, I highly disagree.
Not the way to go. Dr. Stephen Gashie is an economist, and Justina Wamai, a champion of economic democracy. Thank you for joining in this conversation this morning. Have to keep it alive. Asante, it's 8 minutes. Thank you.